Shannon and Weaver model is the most popular model of communication and is widely accepted all over the world. Let us first go through the following example to understand the model better. Peter is working as Vice President Marketing with a reputed multinational firm. He is currently heading Mike, who is in turn is taking care of small team. Peter wanted Mike to prepare an exhaustive report on marketing strategies which can be employed to achieve the goals of the organization. He also wanted a detailed study on the competitor's activity by end of the day. While he was speaking, the company peon interrupted to take a lunch order. Finally, when Mike got the complete information, he in turn delegated the responsibility to his team members. He tried his level best to convey what Peter actually expected his team to prepare. At the end of the day, the team did prepare the report and submit it to Peter, but there were few errors which they rectified later on. Now let us understand the example in a more detailed way. Who is Peter? Peter is actually the person who thought of preparing the detailed report for better output of the organization. He is actually the one from whom the thought came. It was Peter's brain who came up with this idea of preparing marketing strategies for the organization. Thus, Peter is actually the source of information. Had Peter kept the idea in his mind only without sharing it with his team, the organization would have never been benefited out of it. It is very important for the individual to share his ideas as well as information with others to make the best possible use of the information. Do you think Mike and his team would have come to know about Peter's idea if he had sorted it in his brain only? Obviously, no. Peter had to convert his thoughts into words and bring out the information through his mouth. Here, mouth is actually working as a transmitter which helps in transmitting the information, message from the brain to the mouth after carefully putting the thoughts into words. Peter spoke about some reports which he wanted from his team. The words or Peter's voice is actually the signal being sent to Mike about what he is expected to do. Without signal or without content, how will Mike know what he is supposed to do? Go through the example once again. The conversation was interrupted by the peon who came for the lunch order. In the same way, signals get interrupted by various noises and distractions while traveling from the sender and finally reaching to the recipient. Horns at crowded streets, hustle bustle of the marketplace, babies wailing, people screaming are all various types of noises which get coupled with the signal or in other words the information. Finally, Mike could gather all information from Peter after ignoring what the peon spoke and downloaded it to his team who were supposed to prepare the report. Shannon and Weaver model simply proposes that a message actually originates from the person who gets the thought or has the information. The sender is also called the source of information or the information source. The recipient then further passes on the message to its final destination or other minds of the individuals. Information source, the originator of message, the information source selects the desired message. The transmitter, encoder is the transmitter which converts the message into signals. The sender's messages are converted into signals like waves or binary data which is compatible to transmit the messages through cables or satellites. Decoder, the reception place of the signal which converts signals into message. A reverse process of encoder, the receiver converts those binary data or waves into message which is comfortable and understandable for receiver. The receiver, it is the destination of the message from the sender. Let us go through the example once again. The team did prepare the report, but there were some errors which got rectified later. This is the loophole of Shannon-Weaver model. The message while reaching the final destination might get distorted sometimes as different people interpret message in a different way. For Mike, marketing strategy could be branding strategy, but for the team, marketing strategies could be simple sales technologies to increase the output. Thus, even a simple message can get a different meaning after finally reaching its destination. In 1954, Charles E. Osgood model. Now let's talk about Charles Osgood's model. In 1954, Charles E. Osgood presented the theory of meaning. Wilbur Schramm changed this theory of meaning into a model, and after this model became the circular model of communication. Charles E. Osgood was an American psychologist who developed the technique of measuring the connotative meaning of the concept, known as semantic differential. Osgood was born in Somerville and did his PhD from Yale University. Wilbur Schramm was a scholar and also known as the authoritarian of mass communication. He was a great influencer of mass communication and was one who established the departments of mass communication studies across the universities of the United States. He was the first person to call himself a communicator scholar. Schramm did a pilot project called Mass Communication Program for his PhD in Iowa University. Schramm was born in Germany in 1935. He founded a literary magazine called American Prefaces, a journal of creative and imagery writing. Schramm was especially influential for his 1964 book Mass Media and National Development, which was published in conjunction with UNESCO, which effectively began research into the link between the spread of communication technology and socio-economic development. In Mass Media and National Development 1964, Schramm said that mass media in developing countries needed to play three roles: those of watchdog, policymaker, and teacher for change and modernization. The Osgood and Schramm model is about two-way of communication between a sender and a receiver. Osgood popularized the statement that communication is circular rather than linear, which requires sender and receiver for sharing their information. Wilbur Schramm talked about this model in his book called The Process and Effect of Communication. He adapted this model to make theory. He added the notion of field of experience in his theory. Field of experience assimilates a mutual understanding of both the parties. Wilbur Schramm adapted Shannon and Wilbur's model of human communication, called a mathematical model called, but Schramm stressed encoding and decoding aspects as crucial. He defines communication as the sharing of information, ideas, and attitudes. In Osgood and Schramm model, encoding and decoding is the most important component. In electronic communication, he explains substitute for encoder microphone and decoder earphone. In this model, he considers encoder and source is one person and decoder and destination is another. Here, signal is the language and you are talking about human communication. The next model is SMCR model, also known as Berlow's model. Kindly go through this model representation. Berlow's SMCR model of communication. While the Aristotle model of communication puts the speaker in the central position and suggests that the speaker is the one who drives the entire communication, the Berlow's model of communication takes into account the emotional aspect of the message. Berlow's model of communication operates on the SMCR model. SMCR, which stands for Source, Message, Channel, and Receiver. Let us now study all the factors in detail. The source. Source, in other words, also called the sender, The source, in other words, also called a sender, is one from whom the thought originates. He is the one who transfers the information to the receiver after carefully putting his thoughts into words. How does the source or the sender transfer his information to the recipient? It is done with the help of communication skills, attitude, knowledge, social system, and culture. Communication skills. An individual must possess excellent communication skills to make his communication effective and create an impact among the listeners. The speakers must know where to take pauses, where to repeat the sentences, how to speak a particular sentence, how to pronounce a word, and so on. The speaker must not go on and on. He should also make a point to cross-check with the recipient and listen to their queries as well. An individual must take care of his accent while communicating. A bad accent leads to a boring conversation. Attitude. It is rightly said that if one has the right attitude, the whole world is at his feet. There is actually There is actually no stopping for the person if he has the right attitude. A person might be a very good speaker, but if he doesn't have the right attitude, he would never emerge as a winner. The sender must have the right attitude to create a long lasting impression on the listeners. An individual must be an MBA from the reputed institute, but he would be lost in the crowd without the right attitude. Knowledge. Here, knowledge is not related to the educational qualification of the speaker or the number of degrees he has in his portfolio. Knowledge is actually the clarity of the information which the speaker wants to convey to the second party. One must be true in what he is speaking with complete in-depth knowledge of the subject. Remember, questions can pop up anytime and you have to be ready with your answers. You need to be totally familiar with what you are speaking. Before delivering any speech, read as much as you can and prepare the subject completely without ignoring even the smallest detail. Social system. Imagine a politician delivering a speech where he proposes to construct a temple in a Muslim dominant area. What would be the reaction of the listeners? They would obviously be not interested. Was there any problem in the communication skills of the leader? Or he didn't have the right attitude? The displeasure of the listeners was simply because the speakers ignored the social setup of the place where he was communicating. He forgot the sentiments, cultural beliefs, religious feelings of the second party. Had it been a Hindu dominant society, his speech would have been very impressive. Culture. Culture refers to the cultural background of the community or the listeners where the speaker is communicating or delivering his speech. The next M, message. When an individual converts his thoughts into words, a message is created. This process is called as encoding. Any message further comprises of the following elements. Content. One cannot show his grey matter to others to let him know what he is thinking. A thought has to be put into words and content has to be prepared. Content is actually the matter or the script of the conversation. It is in simpler words the backbone of any communication. Ted to Jenny. I am really exhausted today. Let's plan for a movie tomorrow evening. Whatever Ted has communicated with Jenny is actually the content of the message. It is very important to the speaker to carefully choose the words and take good care of the content of the speech. The content has to be sensible, accurate, crisp, related to the thought to hit the listeners bang on and create an immediate impact. It has been observed that speech alone cannot bring a difference in the communication. Keep on constantly speaking and the listeners will definitely lose interest after some time. The speech must be coupled with lots of hand movements, gestures, postures, facial expressions, body movements to capture the attention of the listener and make the speech impressive. Hand movements, gestures, postures, facial expressions, body movements, gestures all come under the elements of the message. Treatment. Treatment is actually the way one treats his message and is conveyed to the listeners. One must understand the importance of the message and must know how to handle it. If a boss wants to fire any of his employees, he has to be authoritative and can't express his message in a casual way. This is referred to as the treatment of the message. One must understand how to present his message so that the message is conveyed in the most accurate form. Structure. A message cannot be expressed in one go. It has to be properly structured in order to convey the message in the most desired form. Code. Enter a wrong code and the locks Enter a wrong code and the locks will never open. Enter a wrong password, you will not be able to open your email account. In the same way, the code has to be correct in the communication. Your body movements, your language, your expressions, your gestures are actually the codes of the message and have to be accurate. Otherwise, the message gets distorted and the recipient will never be able to decode the correct information. Channel. Channel actually refers to the medium, how the information flows from the sender to the receiver. How does one know what the other person is speaking? It is through hearing. How does one know whether the pasta he has ordered is made in white sauce or red sauce? Through tasting. How does one know that there is a diversion ahead or it's a no parking zone? Through seeing. How will an individual come to know that the food is fresh or stale? How do we find out the fragrance of a perfume? Through smelling. How will you find out whether the milk is hot or not? Through touching. All the five senses are channels which help human beings to communicate with each other. The next element is R, the receiver. When the message reaches the receiver, he tries to understand what the listener wants to convey and then responds accordingly. This is also called as decoding. The receiver should be on the same platform as the speaker for smooth flow of information and better understanding of the message. He should possess good communication skills to understand what the speaker is trying to convey. He should have the right attitude to understand the message in a positive way. His knowledge should also be at par with the listener and must know about the subject. He should also be from the same social and cultural background just like the speaker. There are several loopholes in the Berlow's model of communication. According to the Berlow's model of communication, the speaker and the listener must be a common ground for smooth conversation, which is sometimes not practical in the real scenario. The source should have communication skills, attitudes, knowledge, social system, and culture as we discussed thoroughly. The message should have the content, the elements, the treatment, the structure, and code. The channel, it can be through hearing, seeing, touching, smelling, or tasting. Criticism of Berlow's model of communication. Number one, no feedback, or we do not know about the effect. Number two, does not mention barriers to communication. Number three, no room for noise. Number four, complex model. Number five, needs people to be on same level of communication to occur. Number six, main drawback of the model is that the model omits the usage of sixth sense as a channel, which is actually a gift to human beings, thinking, understanding, analyzing, etc. New com model. The Newcomb's model of communication was introduced by Theodore M. Newcomb of the University of Michigan in 1953. He gives different approach to the communication process. The main purpose of the theory is to introduce the role of communication in a social relationship and to maintain social equilibrium within the social system. He does not include the message as a separate entity in his diagram, implying it only by use of directional arrows. He concentrates on the social purpose of communication, showing all communication as a means of sustainable relationships between people. Sometimes it's called as an ABX model of communication. The Newcomb's model works in a triangular format or ABX system, where A stands for the sender, B stands for the receiver, X stands for the matter of concern. The relationship between A and B is like student and teacher, government and public, or newspaper and readers. Sender and receiver may work in a same flow, but at the same time some factor like X may affect their flow of relationship. X, it may be the third person, issue, topic or policy. For example, a teacher introduced a new policy to increase the college timing from 6 to 8 hours. Here, A is teachers, B is student, X is the policy or the issue. If both students and teachers are satisfied with this policy, then the communication maintains its equilibrium status between them. Otherwise, the flow of communication between A and B becomes trouble in the social system. If A or B is not ready to accept the policy, then it will directly affect the social system and can't maintain the equilibrium status. So, teachers A can convince students B as much as possible. Otherwise, they have to make some adjustment in the policy X and convince them towards the policy. Helical model of communication. Another very important model of communication is the helical model of communication. The helical model of communication was proposed by Frank Dance in 1967 to throw some more light on communication process. Dance thought of communication process is similar to helix. What is a helix? A helix is nothing but a smooth curve just like a spring which if goes upwards also comes downwards. Helical model of communication was designed by Frank Dance keeping the simple helix in mind. Let us understand with the help of an example. A child from the very moment he comes to this world starts communicating. When a baby is born, the nurse rubs his back to make the child cry. If the child doesn't cry, it is an indicator of a stillborn child. What does crying in this case refers to? It is actually a way the child is communicating to his parents that he is alive, absolutely hale and hearty and ready to face the challenges of the world. As the child grows up, he cries whenever he is hungry or expects something from his parents and sometimes simply for his parents' attention. It is again a child's own way of conveying a message to the whole world. When the same child grows up and starts going to the school, he soon interacts with his parents, teachers, friends in the form of words. Now, crying actually gets replaced by words or a speech, but one thing which is common is the process of communication which existed since the child's birth. Thus, the child actually started communicating from the very first day of his life and has been communicating all through till the present day. This explains one part of the helical model of communication. According to the helical model of communication, the process of communication evolves from the very birth of an individual and continues till the existing moment. All living entities start communicating from the very first day to their origin. When seeds are planted, they convey the message to the gardener that they need to be watered daily and should be treated well with fertilizers and manure. When a plant emerges from the seed, it also starts communicating its need for water, sunlight, manure, and fertilizers, thus supporting the helical model of communication. The same also applies for animals, birds, fishes, and all living creatures. Let us throw some more light on the real life situation. An individual in his elementary class learns to pronounce a particular word or react to a particular situation. It has been observed that even though the child grows up, he continues to pronounce that particular word in the same way as he did during his growing up days, or for that matter, if the same situation arises again, the he would, under all circumstances, reach in the same way as he did in the past. The fear of the child when suddenly the light goes off at night, resulting in a complete blackout, is presented in his younger days as well as when he grows up. The above example again makes the helical model of communication clear. According to the helical model of the process of communication moves forward, it also comes back is largely dependent on the past behavior of the individual. The model believes that communication process is just like a helix which moves toward as well as comes backward and is dependent on the behavior patterns of the past definitely with some modifications and changes. As the child grows, he does make slight changes in his past body movements and past pronunciation or facial expressions. He makes certain changes, modifications in his communication and tries to get rid of the communication errors. An individual will definitely get less nervous in his teenage days as compared to his childhood days. Thus, a slight change in the behavior is observed. The helical model of communication understands communication in a broader perspective and consider almost all the activities of an individual from day one to till date. It accumulates all the activities occurring in the complete span of an individual after effects the process of communication, which in turn goes forward and also depends on the past activity. That's all for today. Thank you very much.